Debbie with Cultural Alignment Solutions, and I want to welcome you to the Expansion Factor podcast. Super excited about our guest today. We are going to dive deep, Tennisha, into what it is that you're doing on this planet. So let me tell you a little bit about Tennisha. Tennisha is the founder and the executive director of BlackGirlsHack. It's BGH Foundation. It's a national security nonprofit organization dedicated to providing education, resources to underserved communities, and increasing the diversity in cyber. All of that sounds so huge to me, but I will tell you, Tanisha, when I went and I personally researched you because I was like, what the heck? I get the joy of coaching a cybersecurity gentleman that's in a pretty large scale organization. And it's like he blitzes my brain, the stuff he tells me. And I was like, I want her. I want her. I want her. So I'm super excited for you just really sharing your passion, what brought you here, why the community you served, and then anything else that you want to share, because this is all about how people expand in life, leadership, and love. So you get to talk about it all. How does that sound?
That sounds like a plan. I love it.
Awesome. So I got one opening question for you that I want to start with, and then we'll just jump off into whatever questions happen there. But if you could think of one word that represents what got you here, why you're here, what might that word be?
I'd say evolution. I am constantly evolving. I am not the same person today that I was when I started my career 30 years ago. So it's basically been, learning, who I am, my priorities change, what it is that I'm interested in changes, and, the same way like my career has changed over the course of the year. So I have evolved. I'd like to say that I've grown and become a better person today than I was, all of the yesterdays. So that's my word.
That's awesome. One of my mentors used to always say, girl, you're either growing or you're dying. That's it. There ain't no staying in the
That's
middle.
factual.
It's like, okay, well, I want you to unpack, all of this that you're doing, your passion. Just share with us your story. What got you here, exactly what it is you do, and the benefits and all of that.
Absolutely. So I actually founded Black Girls Hack. We do business as BGH Foundation about 5 or 6 years ago. And it started when I was trying to transition into cybersecurity myself. And I was finding that I was having a hard time. And I have always prided myself as someone who's always been overeducated, over certified, like all of the things. My approach to my career was I am just going to out educate, out certify all of the things. And then as long as you're overqualified, then you don't never have to worry about, not being qualified. And so I said if I was having problems getting into the industry, that I realized that other people would probably be having them, especially people who are new to the industry. And I realized that my path has not been the most direct or, clean. And I figured that I could share, some of my experience. I've been in the workforce for, almost 30 years at this point. I have 5 master's degrees. I'm currently working on a doctoral degree. I've been in school like most of my life, and when I haven't been in school, I've been teaching other people. Education has always been very important to me. And the thing that I'm most, I think, proud of as far as developing Black Girls Hack as a training organization is, helping so many people who otherwise would not be in the industry be able to get into either the IT or the cybersecurity industry. Because I feel like a lot of times women specifically talk ourselves out of specific jobs like, oh, I'm not technical enough, or, I'm not good at math, or I'm not, we talk ourselves out of, opportunities and, places in the industry where we might be able to add valuable contributions. Even before we get an opportunity or let someone else be able to, say, hey, you're not good enough. We talk ourselves out of that. So, what I work with people, especially underrepresented communities, is getting the training that they need, getting the certifications that they need, and then being prepared, getting in the right mindset to know the value that you're bringing to companies and being able to articulate that in a way that makes sense, and it goes through to them. Because again, like I feel like a lot of times, especially for women, we're talked into a different set of careers. They call them pink careers, but people tell folks, oh, well, you should be a teacher, or you should be a nurse, or you should be, not like, hey, you should go be a hacker, or you should be, a systems analyst, or a IT help desk, or work in GRC, or whatever the case may be. We don't have people telling us to do those things. It's go be a doctor, go be a lawyer. Or if you watch the news, then it's, hey, go be an actor or an influencer or, an entertainer, right? But, you can make a great career in the technology and cybersecurity space. And it's just a matter of, knowing that you are needed and then you are welcome there. Because there are not a lot of women that are in the space. I think if you look at the national statistics, I think we represent something like 25% now. That's
Wow.
definitely grown. Over the course of time. But the reality is that women represent something like 51% of the world. So, you would expect that if all things being equal, that we should represent more in the technology and cybersecurity sector, but we don't. And there's a lot of things that go into that. And part of that is, there are also economic costs, barriers to entry for people who are trying to get into the industry. The certifications are very expensive, not just in terms of the amount of time that you have to take, but then in terms of financial resources. And when you have people who are trying to decide, hey, am I going to buy my food, or am I going to pay my car note or my rent, what I'm saying, or buy the certification? I guarantee you the certification is probably going to lose every time, because people need to take care of their basic needs. So, we want to be able to provide people with the opportunity once they've decided, like, hey, I want something more for my life, then they can basically come and join us and start working towards a certification or 4 or 8, whatever it is. We've had people who've gotten many certifications who've been able to get into new tax brackets. And for me, that's what this is all about. It's about, helping people to make the connections, get the skills that they need, and to enter the workforce, well trained and qualified with the confidence to know that they can actually do the job and do it well.
Yeah. So what are they getting? I'm hearing so many different layers. So you do have a nonprofit. So when
Mhm.
they come and they interact with you, do you provide the certifications or do you help them get the funding for the certifications? What does your nonprofit do to support this work that you graciously and powerfully are doing? It's like, wow.
Yeah, so we have free memberships and we have a paid membership. And right now, I think our paid membership is $49, and then our free membership is obviously free. But they are welcome to join any of our training programs once they're a member, whether that be free or paid. For example, we break up most of our training programs into level 102, 3, 4, or 5. And what that basically is like at the level 102, which is basically like, hey, I'm going to get my security plus, I'm going to get maybe my A plus or my cloud plus. It's basically a foundation level certification on whatever track that you're on. So that looks different whether you're on like an AI track, or if you're on a red team track, or if you're on a blue team, for example. So let's say that they come in and they say, hey, I want to join this training program. And up until 2023, we actually offered all of our training programs for free. But what we found is that people would start programs and then not actually complete them because they were free and they didn't value it and appreciate it. So we now charge a nominal cost. So it's like $150, and that gets them basically one certification. So that could be like the Security Plus. So if you buy the Security Plus at the website, I think it's like $404 is the going rate for it. So they get it from us for 150, and that includes not just the voucher, but it also includes the labs, it includes the training modules, it includes the books, it includes everything that they need to basically prepare for that certification. So altogether, that package is probably like $1,500, and they're maybe paying like 10% of that. And all they have to really do is pay that, money, and that's just like, hey, just prove you're serious, and then once they're done with that, then they get the certification, they can get the voucher, they can go and test it. We don't take it for them. We just help them prepare. We help to make them successful. So we'll put them in a cohort with other people because we find that our members work better when they have someone else that they can say, hey, I'm doing this thing. I don't know what this means. Can you tell me what this is? How do I do this? You know what I'm saying? Like strength in numbers, if you will. So we want them to be supported, and then we provide them with an instructor so that they can be able to ask questions. And then they get like once a week instruction on that material. And then over the course of the 3 months, basically they study, and then at the end of the 3 months, they go and take their certification. And then if they're good, then they can go and take that certification, go get a job. We have mentors. We have people who will review their resumes or help them revise their resumes if they need it, help them to review their LinkedIn, do mock interviews. We have all of those career related like wraparound services. And then if they decide like, oh, I want to go and get, two more certifications, and they can just start them. And then most of our programs are 3 months long, unless it's like a OSCP or one of the more extensive ones, which take like a year or 6 months or something of that nature. But we basically, say, hey, this is the track, this is the certifications that we think that you need to be like a red teamer or to be a blue teamer. And so basically they can go and take those up to 8 certifications or up to 10 certifications over the course of that, some period of time. And then once they're done, they can go and, get a job or whatever it is they decide they want to do with that.
Yeah. Yes. So you literally set them up for success all the way around. And I love that
Absolutely.
you actually have started charging. Isn't that crazy how that actually sets somebody up for success versus the
It
free?
it hurts my heart because like I
Yeah.
see people online. I am on X or Twitter or whatever it's called these days, much to my dismay. And what you see on there is a lot of people who have been taken advantage. You have people who are charging tens of thousands of dollars for, like, let's call it a Security Plus boot camp, where you're asking someone to pay, up to $10,000 to take this certification. And then at the end of it, it's not like, if the employer says, hey, I want you to have a degree, that this boot camp or whatever they're calling it is going to help them to be able to get that job. It's not, right? And at the end of it, they basically paid $10,000 for a $400 certification, that will help them get an entry level job. You know what I'm saying? It's not even going to help them to reimburse the cost of all of that. And, that really breaks my heart because the information is out there, and we try to structure it in a way that it's available for people, and they just have to basically bring themselves and be committed to getting the things done. I hate when people get taken advantage of, or where you have those people who say, oh, well, I can help you make, six figures in 6 weeks or in six
Hmm.
months or, whatever the gimmicky type of things that, I see a lot of people falling victim to. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want people to be saying like, hey, I feel like I'm not ready for the industry, or maybe the industry doesn't want me because I've spent 10 months or however long at this point getting ready for this career, and the only thing they've got to show for it is the Security Plus. Like our folks are able to get that Security Plus certification, which, as you probably know, is the minimum that they need to get like 8570 certification for like government contracting work. That's the minimum certification that they need. They can go and get a job at that point and, be able to actually get started working. And, they've spent maybe $150 and they've gotten all of the training materials and all of those things, right? And they actually have something to show for it. And it's not, I think, taking advantage of people who are very desperate to get into the workforce. Because I mean, a lot of the people that I encounter, if you look at the BGH by the numbers, I think something like 49%, 48% of them are basically in that 0 to 5 years. Like, I am entry level workforce trying to get into the industry. We've got, people who are CISOs, we've got people who are executive levels. But for the bulk of our organization, it's people who are relatively new to the workforce, either because they're a career changer, going from accounting or nursing into cyber or technology, or, they just graduated from high school and they're trying to figure out what to do with their lives, right?
Yeah.
But again, we want to meet people where they're at. And I think one of the most important things that I've learned since starting this organization is the value of having a network in actual people. I do not like people. I do not like being around people. Like, I'm an introvert.
That's not why you chose cybersecurity, is it?
It isn't, it is not. It is not. But like, I honestly thought that I could, game the system, if you will, by like out educating, out certifying. Like, I've got all the certifications, I've got all the degrees. I thought that I could basically, excel in the things that I thought that they cared about. But the reality is that that's not what they care about, right? You have these ATS systems who, discriminate against someone like me because my name is Tanisha, right? You can tell that I am a person of color just by my name, right? And there's a major lawsuit against a pretty big company right now because the system that basically is used for recruiting across so many different sectors and companies is basically discriminating based on age and race and gender, if you
Yeah.
are a Black woman who is old and you've got a bad back like me, then, these systems may say, for example, that, you're not qualified. No matter how much I am qualified, how many keywords I hit, again, it's going to assess a cultural fit based off of, something that is biased, this data that these systems are trained on. So it's
Mhm.
like, hey, how do we use, like, for example, AI to target your resume? How do you generate cover letters? How do you stand out in a group of, you know, hundreds of people? Because most of the time, if you see a job posting, it'll be like, before you can even get there, there's 250 people who've already applied to the job,
Yeah.
which could be discouraging because if you've got 250 applicants, how am I going to stand out? We're, showing people their value and what they can actually bring and how to help them basically stand out amongst a crowded, workforce environment. And that's what I want to try to do is to help people to basically change their tax brackets. And I feel like this is going to help to bring more money into the collective economy. It's going to help to get different types of people into the workforce. Part of the work that I'm doing as far as my doctoral research is how do we get more neurodiverse people into fields like ethical hacking, where it's a very structured process. How do we make sure that we stay on track, and we can use, like, for example, AI systems to help make sure that we are doing things in a systematic and structured approach. So, how do we use this to help, structured learning outcomes for students, for example? So those are the types of things that I care about. And, what we're trying to do, again, is to get more diverse candidates into the industry because I think that the end result will be a United States that is a stronger, more secure, um, you know, defense that is stronger, and I think
Mhm.
that we'll be more competitive in the national security landscape.
Yeah. What do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions today about cybersecurity?
I think that you have to be a developer in order to participate, or that you have to be good in math. That's, I think, one of the things that I hear because I hear people who have tried to program and it's, kicked them in their butt much in the same way that math has when they were younger because it wasn't explained in the right way or in a way that they can understand. And so they assume that they're not good at it, and therefore they've basically mentally blocked themselves off from entire sets of careers just based off of what someone has told them. And I think that that type of gatekeeping behavior where you're saying like, hey, well, you have to know how to code, C or Python or whatever the case may be, keeps people who are very qualified and can be able to add value from actually joining the industry. And the reality is that, even as an ethical hacker, sometimes I have to program. 90% of what I'm doing, 95% has nothing to do with code at all.
Oh, wow.
And I think that that's important for people to know because, again, you have people who are, standing up on their very high perches and saying, well, if you're not a coder, if you're not a developer, if you're not good at math, then you can't do this or you can't add value. When the
Mhm.
reality is that we have an industry that is very, very much so looked homogenous and the same. When you look at, conferences, when you look at the people who are speaking and representing the industry, you don't see a lot of very high profile women or underrepresented communities in those spaces, and that's one of the things that I'm trying to do is to let them know that there's an entire career out there for them to, be interested in. And, that's part of the reason why we do the work that we do with kids. We have a K through 12 program, which is called We Got Next Cyber. And we partner with various school systems and organizations to help introduce cybersecurity and ethical hacking to kids because, again, most people develop their STEM identities, I think it's like in the fifth grade, right? So by the time we get to see them when they're already adults, they're like, hey, I've already lived a whole life, but now I'm interested in getting into cyber. What if we, started attracting people when they're in the point where they're developing their STEM identities and say, hey, these things exist. Then you have, don't have people who are going back to school to get doctorates like me after, 20 years. You have people who, they can start doing research when they're young and add meaningful contributions, because the reality is that most research um, is done by people who are impacted by whatever it is that they're researching, right? So if we wanted to look at, for example, error rates in like machine learning and artificial intelligence and how they negatively impact, for example, like Black women in facial recognition. Some of the error rates are up is 35, high as 35%. How do who's going to care about that? It's probably going to be a Black woman that's going to, say, hey, what do we do about this? One of the researchers that was formerly of Google, Timnit Gerber, I think is her last name. She basically said, hey, these error rates are absolutely horrible for women of color. She pointed out that as a part of her, her research, these are some of the ethical issues that
Yeah.
we need to consider when it comes to AI systems, right? So who's going to care about that? It's not going to be the 65% of people who are not Black women.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
going to be the
Yep.
Black women who say, hey, 35% is way too high, especially when you consider that there are life and death implications. There are, freedom or recidivism related implications. There's so many different, outcomes. Hiring, we can keep entire classes of people out of the industry if these AI systems are automatically discriminating against 51% of the world. So we need to do better. But the reality is that there is no, I think, economic um, driver for these companies to pause and take corrective action in these areas, because it does not impact, the largest populations of their user bases. So you need people, specifically women in STEM, to kind of address some of these inequalities in the various systems and their downstream impacts.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you're going after the younger generation when I hear that you're going into schools and partnering with schools, because there is one thing I know just viewing it with my own grandkids and our own journey, just on a personal note with just our own family, whether it's gender choices, all of those types of things that you navigate. It is the kids that shift the quickest in the best ways, in the best ways. And I think it's important that you are doing that. And I cheer you on with that, because that's where evolvement is happening. And I love that you used that word in the beginning, evolvement, because it really is happening in that younger gen. And they're going to change us, they're going to change all of us. So I love that you're tapping into that.
Absolutely, because I mean, if you look at it, you have kids who basically were born with devices in their hands, right?
Hmm.
My niece, she could unlock she had no concept of what a passcode was, but she could just see the motions that I made on my phone, and she could mimic those when she was like a baby. She couldn't read, or what I'm saying, but she could unlock an iPhone, right? And when we talk about securing these types of devices, when we talk about the technology, my mother, she had to learn how to use the computer. She was not one of the generations that basically grew up with them. So the younger generations, I think, have the ability to understand these technologies in a way that some of the older folks, we have to learn and we have to adopt and grow. But this is life for them. They were born with these devices. So the reality is when it comes to how are people using these devices, how can they be abused? How can you circumvent, what are people using these systems for? And then how do I think outside the box to, figure out how a malicious actor might be able to attack them or use these systems? The people who basically were born with them, I think, have a greater advantage than people who basically
Yeah.
had to learn and adapt and grow. So I think that they have the ability to do a lot of great things, but they have to basically start using the technologies. But I mean, honestly, today, like I was telling my sister-in-law the other day, like, I don't know that I would necessarily leave my nieces and my nephews unsupervised with AI systems now, just because, again, I don't think that there are sufficient guardrails that protect children. And I don't think that the systems themselves are secured enough in terms of things like data poisoning, or, because people trust these systems implicitly. We can tell that because you've seen, like, for example, lawyers who take made up court cases that, ChatGPT has basically cited into courtrooms, and then come to find out that the whole thing has been hallucinated and made up, right? We have doctors who are basically sitting in meetings with their patients and putting information in ChatGPT in front of their patients, because I see the videos on social media, and you see them typing it in to find out. So people are trusting the systems implicitly, right? And I think that without the guardrails, without the safety and the ethics, I guess regulating these systems, that
Wow.
I don't necessarily know that I would trust unsupervised access to children, just because, I've seen some of the extreme downstream impacts of what that does for children. You know what I'm saying? Because,
Yeah.
it's not
Powerful.
giving back like, hey, I'm thinking about something negative. The system should, hey, you should seek help, or maybe you could seek a parent, or maybe, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
there are certain
Yeah.
things like the internet, if you do a certain Google searches, they'll say, hey, this is a helpline that you can reach out to. Those same guardrails are not in these systems. So they could be basically pushing people to do things which are not, healthy for them,
Healthy.
or productive for their lives. And, I
Yeah.
just don't know that I would feel comfortable leaving children in those types of environments. So, but I think it's important that they have adopted technologies, but I think again, it needs to be with, adult supervision and in
Hmm.
a structured environment until
Hmm.
the systems can be trusted.
Yeah. So as we, wrap up this most interesting conversation, I want you, if what what do you want to tell, like, if someone listening to this right now went, I want to get a hold of her, right? I want all that information to get a hold of you. But then what benefits are they going to get? Like, what can you bring them? What are you looking for right now today?
So the biggest things that we're looking for are sponsors to be able to continue the work. So we need like donations. We need people to donate their time. We're a volunteer organization. Um, excuse me, most of my staff is not paid. I think my executive assistant and one other person is actually gets paid on a regular basis, and everybody else is just volunteering because they believe in the mission. So, the biggest thing for us to be able to continue the work is funding, especially in this post, DEI world where it's been an attack, recently within over the past 6 months to a year against DEI. That's negatively impacted our funding and a lot of our corporate donors. So that's the biggest thing for us. The other thing that I would say that we need is, technologists. So people who are have a particular set of skills that they would like to come and share with us or introduce us to, because as much as we're a training organization, we also want to be an exposure, to the different technologies, the different work that people are doing. Because like, when I started, I was like, hey, everybody should want to hack because I want to hack. But the reality is that, cybersecurity is a big monolith of different fields and opportunities, and not everyone has to do the same types of things, So, help to introduce us to different things like mainframe hacking, or drones, or whatever the case may be. There's a lot of different technologies and things out there. I don't know all of the things, and I can only teach the things that I know, if that makes sense. So, the more people that we get who have, knowledge in particular areas, especially people who are willing to share that knowledge, I think that's going to be very critical, not just for, the workforce of today, but I think the future workforce of tomorrow, which is the K through 12 folks.
So, Tanisha, you're doing amazing work. I'm just going to encourage everybody to just share this. If someone just popped in your head, click share, give this to them, right? And let's use the power of this whole connectivity and expanding, being able to just connect people. So I'd like to
Absolutely.
close by drawing a word and just letting you tell me what you think that word means for you. How does that sound?
Let's do it.
All right, I'm going to just randomly do. Tell me when to stop, and I'll just
All
stop and
right,
pull.
stop.
Okay, right here it is. Wow. Purity.
Ooh, purity. For me, I think purity is what I see in a lot of people that I work with. And what I mean by that is it takes a special type of person to volunteer and to dedicate your time to helping a mission and believing in a cause. And I think that you really have to be pure of heart to, basically be willing to give, your time, your energy, your efforts. One of the most valuable thing that we have in this life is our time, and the fact that people are willing to donate that time to help causes like these, to help people live better lives. I think that leaves a ripple in life that helps leave a lasting impact, and I think that that's the way to go.
I can tell that you have a very pure heart, my dear.
Thank you.
I
I
am
try.
honored that you were here. Yes. So thank you.